from Trey Young, though, we do have another player, and I'm very, very surprised that you had this player so highly regarded in your list. Well, surprised in a way, but we have John Wall coming in at number 9, and John Wall is a great player, but he didn't play last year. We don't really know what he's going to bring. I know why I had him high, but why did you have him high?
Honestly, as bad as it sounds, I know you can't hang a lot on the preseason, but seeing him actually come back and look actually pretty good alongside DeMarcus Cousins in that first game, that was a huge promise. The fact that, again, even in the preseason game where, yes, he's not playing against necessarily the starters on each team, but the fact that a guy could put up 21 points, actually look good in terms of dishing the ball, actually still look pretty quick off the step, it gave me a lot of hope for John Wall, where I know he has something to prove this year. He knows he has something to prove this year. The Houston Rockets know he has something to prove this year. Guys like James Harden are saying, I don't want to play with him. John Wall is going to be the show that guys
Horrible.
want to play with him. So that's why I think he's ahead of a guy like Kyle Lowry this year, who, of course, if I was maybe making a team, I would take Kyle Lowry, but I think John Wall is really going to come out just all the guns blazing this year. And I think he's at minimum going to play 60 games. So I think it's just going to look pretty good for him. He's going to be top 3 in assists. He's going to put likely over 20 per game. So I think it's going to be pretty justified here.
Yeah, people seem to forget that John Wall was a very, very, very good point guard. I know that he relied a lot on his offense, on his speed, when it comes to his athleticism. He was one of the fastest players in the league, if
Yeah.
not the fastest player in the league, right up there with like Westbrook. These guys are just they sprint everywhere. They try hard. What I love about Wall is he plays really good defense as well. But people seem to forget that at one point he's not that far removed from being 23 and 11. 23 and 11. That's nobody gets 11 assists a game. He had 10.7 one year. And on any given year, he can have between 9 and 10 in his sleep. He's got such a great mind. He's got a better passing ability than someone like Kyle Lowry. Sad it is to say, but I just see him in a perfect role out there in Houston. Like he's leading that team now. Harden, leave. It's all good. They got John Wall. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, and I
They're
mean,
gonna compete.
yeah, we've seen a guy like Derrick Rose obviously come back from multiple injuries, and obviously not be necessarily the same player, but pretty close. The main difference was the fact that Rose was never that great of a shooter, versus a guy like Wall still has an ability to shoot. And he obviously Derrick Rose was just a high flyer. He was an athlete. He was gonna double hand dunk every single play, and it was torture on his knees. A guy like Wall might have been fast, like you said, but he's a guy who had no problem sacrificing a dunk for a layup kind of thing. So he's not a guy who I'm worried that even though he has had these injuries, that his game is going to take a huge effect. Where as long as he can stay healthy, I think his game is going to look very similar to what we've previously seen. It's just a matter of him having to stay healthy. I'm having hope that his body stays together and that him having to prove something is going to justify this top 10 spot. Obviously, if he gets injured again, we look dumb here, and I
Different.
can take
Yeah.
that blame. But in terms of skill wise, I know he's a top 10 player this year.
Exactly. And if he doesn't get injured, he will be. And even if I don't, they're going to get something for James Harden. They're going to get a very good player to go, either a very good player or a very good set of role players to go alongside John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, and Wood, on top of players like Eric Gordon and like PJ Tucker that they have there already. Look at the talent on that team. Outside of maybe Bradley Beal when he was in Washington, they did not have a very talented team around John Wall. They did not. They had a bunch of proven vets that were average at best at the position, but they didn't have other players that were considered stars. They didn't have above average role players. They had Paul Pierce that go those couple years. Paul Pierce was like 39 years old. Like they did not have a very great team around him, but they still had a very good amount of success. This team in Houston, even without whatever they're going to get from the Harden trade, is just as talented as any Washington team he's ever played for, let alone what they're going to get from the Harden trade. I think Harden should stay there. I think he's being an idiot for leaving. But hey, John Wall's going to take advantage of it, and he's going to be the leader of that team. And until maybe we're going to look like idiots for having him at number 9 if he doesn't play, but he's been looking very good in preseason. And if that's any indicator, I think he's back.
Yeah, definitely, and that's obviously why we have it in our top 10, especially over some of the guys on this list too who were below him. It's hard to have him above a guy like Chris Paul, who we said John Wall put up 11 assists a few years ago, unheard of. I said Chris Paul
But
might do it this year, and we still had him above Chris Paul. So
he just does all the other things, and I think John Wall still is a very good defensive player. I hate saying that because Toronto and Washington had some great battles, and back when Toronto and Washington had those great battles, I would have said John Wall was a better player than Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry proved a little bit of a difference maker in the playoff, but now Kyle Lowry's getting a little bit older, and he's no longer really the main ball handler on that team. John Wall will be. I think
yeah,
that's where the difference comes in.
yeah, I agree.
So moving on from